Hello and welcome to my review of my cat.
Hello and welcome to my review of the Legio Custodes Orion Assault Dropship. Grab yourself a hot beverage and join me for my review of this excellent model. So the first thing I'd like to say about this model is it's a big one. It's bigger than I thought it would be from the picture that we all got handed out in the Forge World Open Day flyer, which is here. I don't think that picture does it any justice. Neither does the picture in front of the stall. Again, I said it in the Open Day video that I would have much preferred them to have this model on show before, because it's a lot of money. One of these will cost you £275. It is a lot of money. It's a large-ish model, I suppose. A Coronis with wings or winglets. We'll see, because I will obviously compare it to a few of the custodian vehicles. It sort of comes with two bases. It comes with this your standard sort of plastic flying base, which I've only glued the stand on with plastic glue. Plastic glue, if you don't know it, sort of melts both of the types of plastic together, forming a very strong bond. More of a chemical reaction and less brittle than a super glue bond. And I've had stands before where I've glued them with super glue and they've just snapped off quite easily. So I do like the fact that it uses this base. I'll show you the base right now, and I'll show you the model. This base is a larger sort of version of a flying base. It's a huge round base, but it is a large base. It also comes with this little stand, which you can use when it's not off the base. I mean, there's nothing stopping you really from buying another one of those bases and gluing this to it. If we do it that way, then that's basically its feet, so it can just stand like so. There's a few features I have personally had a direct input on this model, because I wanted to make it a little bit different than other people's, but by all means, replication is the sincerest form of flattery. I really don't mind if you copy these techniques and things, much like with the Thunderhawk gunship, which will be appearing in this review too, for size comparisons. But before I carry on with the review, I'll straight up say that I do think it's worth the £275 that they are charging for it. It's a beautiful model. It goes very well with the custodian aesthetic, especially if you don't want to teleport your custodian guard all the time. It gives them another excellent way of transporting their troops and units. We have to wait and see for the rules to come out because they weren't available at the event. I'm hoping they'll release this for pre-order in the next couple of weeks, and then I'll do another video highlighting the rules and comparing it to other flyers such as the Thunderhawk. So now that the pricing's sort of out of the way, when I first saw a picture of this, I did think, that looks a bit too much. I was expecting something like £200 maybe at the most. I didn't expect this extra £75 custodian tax. However, after comparing it to all of my other custodian models, I do think it's a fantastic looking flyer, and really fits in well with the rest of them. It's funny because before this was even sort of announced, I was going back and I was reading a couple of novels. In there they describe custodians being transported in Thunderhawks, things like that. And the thought did cross my mind to just get another Thunderhawk and just spray it gold. The thought is still in my mind to get a Stormbird and to spray it gold. I think that would be incredible, especially when they release the Emperor model and Constantine Valdor and probably Malkador the Sigillite, things like that. So just for price references, a Thunderhawk is £450. This is £275. So for £175 more, you can get a Thunderhawk. Now, if you're on the fence and you've only got, you've saved up the money for 3-4 months and you've got a Space Marine army and you've got a few Custodian Guard models, and you can only buy one thing, which should you choose? My money's on the Thunderhawk, by all means. In my opinion, it's a better model. You'll get more fun out of it. There's more chances of customizing it and changing little bits to it, and also it's such an iconic vehicle, the Thunderhawk. This vehicle here, the Orion, is untested. It's not in the fluff very much at all, and in my opinion the Thunderhawk is both an excellent sort of Horus Heresy vehicle and a Warhammer 40k vehicle, and it would be a centerpiece to your Space Marine army. However, if you've just got a Custodian army and you want to fly them about in this, and you want to have a dropship that can take on other flyers, and you want a centerpiece for your Custodian Guard army, then this is also a good choice. But I would never substitute getting a Thunderhawk over this. Not in any shape or form. So, having said all that, the pros and cons, and looking at it sort of a price-wise kind of thing, let's have a bit of a close-up of the model. So, it was a very straightforward model to build. I thought I'd have some difficulties. I thought it'd take longer than it did. In reality, it took me about an afternoon to build. After all the pieces were prepared and things, which includes washing them, clipping the gates off, cutting the pieces down, filing them, the actual sort of construction and gluing part, an afternoon at tops. So it took me quicker than I had originally planned, and that is the same for the Thunderhawk as well. Let's pick this up. It does weigh a fair bit, I have to tell you. You've got here what I think are the... It's either going to be equipped with a twin-linked Arachnus heavy blaze cannon, or it's going to be equipped with two Arachnus heavy blaze cannons, and I think it's the latter. And then it's got two spiculous bolt launchers. They're actually called that in the instruction guide. And then here, in the instruction guide, these are called twin-linked heavy bolters, but I think that's a load of rubbish, or garbage, as Americans would call it, because they're exactly the same as on the Coronis. Heavy bolters are not in the Talons of the Emperor sort of army list. One thing to note too is the instruction guide that you get with the model. This one here, fantastic instruction guide. You've got your typical exploded diagram, list of parts, and your step-by-step guide to building a model. Like I said at the start, it's very straightforward, simple model to make. We're going to have a look at the model in a moment now, look at the detail, and look at some of the tips and tricks that I've applied to it. So we'll remove it off this base. Like I said, it's pretty heavy. I wouldn't want to put anything heavier than this on one of those flying bases. What I've done is I've actually magnetised these nose-mounted weapons. The twin-linked weapons can move sort of quite freely in there, up or down, pretty decent, and I really like the way I've sort of done that. I think that's one of the best features of this. You can glue them, and there's a little rod that goes through, but what I've done is I've actually magnetised them with a decent sort of size magnet, and they just pop on there very well, and they can be, you know, rotated or whatever. I think that's really cool. The heavy blaze cannons are just fixed in place, they're just glued, and so are the spiculous bolt launchers. What I've also done though is these sort of stabilizer fins I haven't glued in place. They go in there quite tight, so what you can do is you can still have the freedom of moving them, so you can have them on a level orientation or however you choose, and I think that's really cool. The model gives you that freedom. Furthermore, the air brakes, again, you don't need to glue them. You can have them loose and they just slot in that bracket there. So, you know, I do like this air brake system. I like the air brakes on the Thunderhawk. I think they're fantastic. And these are just sort of like little brothers to the larger ones on that model. And then finally, the rear of the dropship, the door, I put a small magnet in there and also a small magnet in there, and you can't really see it, especially when it's going to be painted and stuff, and that's really just to secure that door. I mean, it goes in quite firm. I still probably would need to heat that back of the door and meld it in there a bit more, which is just on my little to-do list, but that door goes in quite well. And to be fair, you could probably do without a magnet anyway. It's the same as the Coronis. I didn't put a magnet in the Coronis, but the doors somehow fit in and they stay in quite well. And then inside, you do have a fair bit of detail. Don't worry, I'm not going to jump scare you. If you can see in there, there is a fair bit of detail. There is some gaps in there, which is fair enough. but that's really difficult to overcome unless you're going to heat all the inside and sort of mould them together. So that's just that. But lovely detail on there, and there we go. I'll just show you the underside of the ship. So you've got all these anti-grav plates. I'm assuming that's what they are. I did have some slippage on this side, but I've corrected that quite well, and the other side was fine. It just was on the inside of that. But they're the engines with the thruster spikes. Really well detailed model, even from below. So there you go. That is the model and a quick look and a look at all of the things that I've done on it. It doesn't really go very well when it's sat on the sort of ground, because it doesn't have any feet or anything like that. It doesn't have any landing gear because it's an anti-grav sort of vehicle, anti-grav sort of flyer. So you can just get away with putting it on this tiny little base, and then it stands okay on there. But you might want to just get another base to glue that stand on and make it a bit more stable. So normally in this part of the video, I'd go through the size comparisons and then I'd talk about the rules. Obviously I can't talk about the rules because they're not out. So instead we're just going to look at a few size comparisons with some models. So first and foremost, a Space Marine or a Mini Marine. It's pretty small compared to the ship, as you can see. This is just your standard little Mini Marine. Yeah, very, very small. Look at him compared to a stabilizer. His base sort of goes over the middle of the ship there. So yeah, it's a big ship compared to a Mini Marine. Compared to a Primaris, yeah, that's about right. Again, a 32mm base is about the thickness of the winglet. And then finally, let's compare it to one of the thick boys, the Custodian Terminators, which is just here. So yeah, I mean, it goes really well with the aesthetics, with the Eagles or the Raptors, whatever you want to call them. So yeah, that just goes to show you that sort of angle. And then what I'll do is, the base is really cool because it clears the ground just slightly so that you can put the door down. And I think I actually have a normal Custodian. So as you can see, it clearly fits a Quillen Terminator in there. Literally, it fits a Terminator in there. See you later. It's just eating one. There you go. You got a surprise now, waiting for anyone that picks a battle with you. So it can literally eat a Custodian, a Quillen Terminator, which is fantastic. I love models that something like that can fit in and freely walk out. Likewise, Custodian, obviously his spear is very tall, so you're not really going to get a spear in, and that's not, but again, it just goes to show you that he could quite freely, if he lowered his spear, walk out of there or run out of there, and you could just put him in there anyway. And a Mini Marine, crikey, this is, he's never been so spoilt. I mean, this is a huge area in here for him. You could probably fit about 50 Space Marines in there. And Primaris, look at this. He even fits a Primaris Space Marine. Can you believe it? So yeah, the door frame is definitely taller than a Primaris. Who knew? In terms of dreadnoughts, I don't know whether it's going to be able to fit a dreadnought. This is your typical Custodian Guard dreadnought, and unfortunately he's just too big. Even if he was crouched on wheels, folded up like a sort of Star Wars trooper, I don't think it would fit a dreadnought, unfortunately, which does suck, but who knows, it might be in the rules. They might be able to carry them. However, a standard dreadnought, it's a push. I'd say you could just fit a standard dreadnought in there. I really would. But yeah, that's just goes to show. What I'll do now is just compare it to the Custodian Guard's other transport. They do only have two forms of transport. One is obviously this now, and the other one is the Coronis, which I have here. Now, forgive my painting, barely even been washed. The red is very raw, and the little blaze cannon hasn't even been washed or highlighted or anything like that. So here is a Coronis. There you go, and it just goes to show you how big, well, how big the Flyer is, but also how big the Coronis is. The Coronis isn't a small model. I mean, the Coronis is bigger than a Land Raider, both wider and longer, specifically longer. But there you go. I mean, when I first saw the Orion, I thought it would just be a simple case of it being, you know, a Coronis with winglets or wings, but it's not. It's a bit wider because, you know, these anti-grav engines aren't really on it. They're on here where the nacelles are. They don't have anything attached to them. So the main troop transport is a fair bit, I'd probably say double the size maybe of the Coronis width-wise, and then you've got all of this length going on here, moving into a nose of the ship. So it's definitely, you know, I'd probably say maybe you could fit 3 of them, sort of space-wise. Definitely double the size width-wise as the Coronis, which again, if it was only the, you know, double the size, then I would have thought, you know, £220. So yeah, £55 more, but you're getting the heavy cannons, you're getting the spiculous launchers, and you're getting 2 twin-linked, I'm assuming, Lastrum bolt cannons. Also the troops transport, again, I'd probably say that that's 12. It might be more though. Also it's a Flyer, and it's probably going to have a better sort of save system and all the rest of it than the Coronis. But we'll see. I'll do a top-down view of it, and then we'll move on to a couple of other Flyers. So hopefully you can see the top-down view, and hopefully that's helping. You can just see just how big the Flyer is compared to the main transport of the Custodian Guard. And here it is next to a Thunderhawk gunship, the new Thunderhawk. People have said, oh, it's almost the same size as the Thunderhawk. It's not the same size as the Thunderhawk. And like I said before, if you've got the option and you can only get one, I'd personally save £175 and get the Thunderhawk. I personally think it's a better model, more iconic, and more of a centrepiece for your Imperium army. But I think this goes to show it's quite an interesting sort of size comparison. The Orion is certainly sort of thicker at the rear than the Thunderhawk, but the Thunderhawk maintains its width all the way to the very end, and it's an assault dropship. Even though the Orion is called an assault dropship, the Orion only has one entry and exit point, which is the rear ramp, whereas the Thunderhawk of course has the 2 side doors and the front assault ramp. So I hope that size comparison helps as well. And that's all I really want to say about the Legio Custodes Orion assault dropship. I think it's a fantastic model. It's really quite straightforward and simple to build. It introduces you to a few customization modification options in terms of the front weapons and the rear hatch. I don't think it's too difficult to build at all. I think if you haven't got that much experience with resin, this would be a good model to build compared to other sort of models in a similar price point, such as the Mastodon or the Warhound Titan, because it's about that price. I bought my Warhound Titan for $250, and I think they're now $360 with the weapons, so quite a big price jump, but I think it's £300. And again, like the Thunderhawk, if you had a choice between a Mastodon and this, get the Mastodon. It has a fully detailed interior, it has a rear ramp, it has a frontal assault ramp sort of door that is excellent, and also you can take the top off at any point, you don't need to glue it, and you have a fully detailed interior too. In my opinion, it's just a better model. It is trickier to build though than this, so bear that in mind. But yeah, if you've got a Custodian Guard army or you've got a Custodian Guard force, I think this is a fantastic model, and it's a great direction that Forge World are going in. It completely came out of the blue. I never heard of it before, sort of 3 months ago, and now I have it in my hands, which is excellent. It really paves the way as well for more flyers that they're making. I would love to see them do the Overlord flyer, which is the Primaris flyer that's in the novel. Apparently that makes Thunderhawks look like toys. It's bigger than a Thunderhawk. It begs the question, is it as big as the Stormbird? But that's for another video, when I'll specifically look at my flyers and look at the Overlord and see where it will fit in the 41st millennium. So stay tuned for the channel for when the rules are released, when I'll do another video to cover them, and I'll compare them to the Thunderhawk and the Stormbird's rules as well. If you have enjoyed this video, don't forget to comment, rate and subscribe. As always, interested to hear your thoughts, put it in the comments below. Thank you ever so much for joining me today. Thank you for watching. The Emperor Protects.